Hey, how's it going, guys? It's TheLlamaSir here, and welcome back to another Rocket League video. And in this one, guys, we have an amazing trading video for you that has to do again with the trading update that was recently just dropped into the game. But today we are going to be going through all 117 painted versions of the new boosts. That is right, guys. So we're going to be going through them fairly quickly, but you'll get to see what every single one of these looks like, so that when you're trading for them, you know what you're getting, you know which ones to go after, and it's even been helpful for me to decide which boosts I want to trade for. But before we get into it, guys, I have to give a shout out to the person who got all of these videos and gave me permission to use them, MasterPie102, the boss himself, who just happens to go into the game and mess around with the files to see all of these items. So his link will be down below in the description, and big thanks to him. And also one other thing quick, all of the black painted versions of the boost will be at the end of the video. I'm not sure why those were separate, they might have been harder to find, but just so you know why they aren't in the initial compilations. But anyways, guys, enough general talk here, and let's jump into it with the first boost on the list. Alright, guys, so starting this video out with one of my favorite boosts that you can now get painted, the Flamethrower boost. This one just has so many good colors. Now, before I say which are my favorites, and you can already see them here, you can decide which are your favorites, but I'm pretty sure this is one of the only trails that has two of them that don't really exist. At least as far as I know, the colors that you can't even really find anybody trading are forest green and saffron. Now, that is really weird. I'm not sure if that's just because they could be close to the default flamethrowers that they decided to keep them out, but I checked around and I'm pretty sure they don't exist. Again, I could be wrong on that, but just keep that in mind when you're looking for these. Now, speaking of which ones are my favorites, I personally like the purple just because it's a very dynamic purple. It's not just like a solid color, it's got this super good fade from the part that's closer to the engine to the way back, which is like a darker purple. It just looks really sick. Then of course you have the titanium white, which is super bright, but it does have a little bit of blue again closer to the engine, but either way it's super sick. And then my third favorite is the sky blue, and that's simply because all of these boosts that can come painted now, a lot of them are defaulted to blue, so it's cool to have a painted version that's super unique and looks very nice. But moving on to the next one here with the sparkles boosts, these ones are admittedly a little bit disappointing just because they are so much darker than the initial sparkles one, which as you can see is super bright, and then you move on to the colored versions, especially crimson and purple, and they are super dark, almost to the point where it's not even really noticeable, and almost like it's kind of a mistake that they should come painted. But even with that being said, some of the ones that look good are especially the lime, which is always the brightest color. It kind of makes up for them being darker, so if you like lime, this is a very cool one to go for. And then the titanium white is still pretty nice, it's just not as bright as some of the others, and also the sky blue is a pretty bright one as well. But overall, a little bit disappointing in my opinion. Definitely stay away from burnt sienna, purple, even the crimson, which is pretty unfortunate for one of the trails that could have looked very nice. Now, as for one that definitely does look nice and is my personal favorite of the new painted boosts, this is the lightning trail in all of its glory, and I cannot say that any one of these looks bad. In fact, I think that these might just be the best boosts to get in the game because every single color looks insane. Even the ones that don't usually look good, like burnt sienna and gray, especially with burnt sienna, it kind of even has this more defined look to it that is even golden to a point and not that typical brown color. And then ones like lime, pink, saffron, orange, all of them just look super good. And of course you've already seen the titanium white in my previous video where I traded for it. It's just so many of these look amazing. Now, the only one that I'm kind of unsure about is the crimson, just because I thought it would be brighter. It's for some reason a little bit more transparent when compared to some of the other ones, and I'm not exactly sure why that's the case, and it kind of has the same thing as the purple, but for the purple it kind of fits. But either way, it's still very good and fits in among all of these amazing ones. But now for one that is just a pure classic and is Speedo's favorite boost, and is a lot of people's favorites too. The classic standard has a lot of good painted versions. Now with this one, there are a few that just look like the classic ones, like standard yellow looks a lot like the saffron. They are slightly different, but that's something to keep in mind. If you suddenly want a saffron colored one, one, just remember you do already have the default ones that are generally pretty close. Now, one of the ones that you cannot get, and is one that a lot of people wanted, is the Crimson Standard, which looks very good. It's a darker red, which you can fit with a lot of colors, but that is definitely one that a lot of people have wanted for a very long time. Now, along with that, purple also looks very cool, but one of the ones that I don't really like is the Titanium White. It's just not very titanium white, but instead more gray, which is pretty disappointing. Usually when you get a titanium white one, you want it to look pure white. You don't want it to look gray, so it is kind of unfortunate, but overall there's some very clean boosts, pretty simple, but ones that a lot of people would like. But as for one that is super close to the lightning boost in being one of the best boosts in the game, the Datastream is definitely a very solid one to collect. Now, as with the lightning boost, this one has very solid colors and doesn't have like variations or fades in them that can kind of make it look weird, and along with that they're also pretty bright as well. But as with the lightning ones, even the burnt sienna and gray looks insane. Like, to be honest, the burnt sienna is one of my favorites because it does look super gold. And again, if you saw my trade up video, I showcased this boost with my Decennium Pro kind of golden car build, and it looks super good, and it's just mind-blowing that it's burnt sienna. But as for the other colors that I think look sick, again, titanium white is super bright. The crimson looks very good, probably one of, if not the best crimson boosts out of all of these. And just, you can see the other colors, they all look insane, and I could see myself collecting some of these in the near future. But moving on to the one that I consider to be the Sparkles boost on steroids, these are the painted variants of the Sacred boost, and unlike the Sparkles, this one fixes that problem with them being dark, and a lot of them show up very well. So those darker colors like crimson, purple, they actually do show up very nice, and they're definitely a lot more noticeable. Now, this boost is just one of the craziest ones out there, just because of how much is going on with it. I mean, you have those circles coming straight from the engine, and then straight behind them, you have this trail of like alternating lines, and then on top of that, you have that same sparkles effect just spewing out of the back of it, and just making it come together. Now, as for the colors I like, I actually really like the greens of this one. The forest green is very cool, and the lime is just super bright, and along with that, some of the other colors like pink, maybe saffron, are some very good looking ones as well. Now, of course, titanium white is very good. Not quite as good as some of the other boosts we've already shown, but if you like sort of a more clean cut titanium white boost, this one is definitely a good option. But again, a very unique trail, very crazy one, and I'm happy that a lot of them look very clean. Now, speaking of some boosts that look pretty clean, I don't really think you can get more clean or simple than the painted ion boosts. Now, when I say pretty simple, I pretty much mean that. These trails aren't very detailed, but they are very clean, and if you like that sort of type of simple boost, these are definitely the ones to go for. Now, for sure, keep in mind that when you're using a car that only has one boost trail, it's no doubt not going to show up very much. Again, a lot of people prefer that, but it's something to keep in mind. And also, some of these colors are very see-through, very transparent, and not that noticeable, especially ones like burnt sienna, gray, purple. Even titanium white to a point is pretty transparent, not very bright, but again, some of you might like that. Now, one of my favorites is definitely like lime or orange or pink, just because there's some pretty unique colors and they do look pretty great. Now, purple was a close one, but again, it's pretty transparent and not that noticeable, but overall, some very simple trails that you could do some very cool stuff with. But as for the second to last boost here, and then we'll get into all of the black painted versions after that, this is Standard's brother here with the Thermal, which I prefer to the Standard just because the Standard is a lot more simple, and this one is kind of more out there, has seemingly more detail to it in the smoke, like especially with colors like sky blue and purple. If you look towards the backs, it has a fade to dark, and it just looks very, very nice. And also the color is a lot more clear throughout the boost, instead of always kind of changing into that gray towards the end. Now, some of my favorites, one of them has got to be sky blue. That is a very, very clean one, as well as a nice and pretty unique color to it. But along with that, I'm also a huge fan of the orange painted version. It almost kind of reminds me of Gold Rush with its colors. I don't know, maybe I have to actually see it in game, but that might be one that I have to try out. But yeah, it's easily pretty close. And then of course titanium white, unlike the Standard where it's more gray, easily a lot more white and easily a lot better. But other than that, also crimson is a very good one. If you're going for crimson trails, keep this one in mind because it is very nice. Now, as for the final boost here, gotta finish finish it out with one of the more unique ones, the plasma. So all of these ones kind of remind me a lot of dark matter. If you were able to get dark matter painted, they definitely have a similar look to this one, and especially if you take a look at the purple painted plasma, you can clearly see the resemblance there. But this one, depending on the color, some of them aren't that great and kind of make the trail like super thin, especially if you're using a car like the Mantis with one boost trail. But as for the colors, they are very cool because they have that sort of fade from the bright color that they're painted to that sort of more black color towards the edges. Now with that being said, some surprising colors like cobalt actually look amazing, and one of my favorites is probably pink because it has that sort of very unique fade to it. Now along with that, titanium white is pretty good. I was a little nervous that it would be more like gray with that fade to black, but they did a good job with that one. And really overall, there's a lot of good options here. But as for the final showcase here of all of the black versions of the boosts, which are some very unique ones, and before I even talk about which ones look the best, I'm pretty sure that a couple of these you can't actually get in the game. There might be some others, but I'm almost 100% sure that you cannot get the lightning boost painted black, as well as the sparkles boost painted black. Now with those ones, it's pretty clear to see why. You can barely see the sparkles one, and then for the lightning, it just looks pretty odd. It's just like these squiggles moving around that do not look very nice. But as for the rest of the boosts, I'm pretty sure you can get them. Like as for Sacred, I actually have that one. You can for sure get it. And other colors like Plasma look very cool. But probably my favorite has got to be the Flamethrower. Mainly because it still keeps that blue closer to the engine, but the rest of it has this very cool sort of like black fire effect to it that makes it look very unique and almost like a completely new boost. So yeah, with those boosts out of the way, that is going to be it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found this helpful. And as always, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe for more news and update videos in the near future, as well as check out some of my previous videos here, such as me doing a huge very rare trade up, as well as showcasing the new titanium white octane, and also on the right, the 8th episode of Funnies and Freestyles. But other than that, guys, again, I hope you enjoyed today's video. I'm TheLlamaSir, and I will see you guys next time.